Google has published a paper that details more about how it's planning to integrate AI into global education. Now, this paper is titled AI and the Future of Learning. And in it, Google leaders outline how AI could help address a worldwide teacher shortage and declining academic outcomes while tailoring learning to individual needs. And they argue AI's role in classrooms should be to amplify human teaching, not automate it. So they outline all sorts of ways that AI is going to have an impact from their perspective on the future of education. So a couple things that jump out in this paper. First, they outlined how their Gemini AI models are now grounded in what they call core learning science through their system called LearnLM. And this basically embeds proven pedagogical principles into the models. And in their words, this makes Gemini the world's leading model for learning. So Gemini can now act as a tutor, lab partner, study coach across different tools like Search, YouTube, and Classroom. According to Google data, Gemini outperforms other models on every learning science metric. And second, they kind of prescribe that AI-driven personalization at scale in education needs to be the norm. We need tools that adapt lessons, feedback, and pacing to each student while freeing teachers to focus on creativity and mentorship. They also call for new assessment models that reward reasoning, collaboration, and originality. Google actually argues that schools should maybe move towards oral exams, project portfolios, and debates, which are areas AI can't easily simulate. And they also prescribe some systemic safeguards. So things like adding in safety filters, privacy protections for under 18 users, and red teaming specifically for educational context. So Paul, the impression I got here was that Google's really giving some serious thought to how AI is going to reshape education as we know it. I mean, it's certainly just the initial flag planted in the ground here, but it seemed, I'd be curious your perspective, especially building an education platform, how you're looking at what they're proposing and where this is going.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to do this one as a main topic was a few things. The first one I read it over the weekend. I'd flagged it last week, and then I read over the weekend, and it's nothing like newsworthy in terms of like some major announcements they're making or some
Right.
major shift. But like I did read it from the perspective, okay, we're trying to build an e-learning platform, and how is this going to affect like professional education? How would that trickle into what we're doing with AI Academy by SmarterX? And so there was that. But then there's, I'm a parent, 7th and 8th graders, and so I'm constantly battling with this integration of AI into education. I'm looking at what the schools are doing, where, my daughter will go into high school next year. I'm assessing the high schools based on what their AI roadmap is and what their policies are. I talk to family and friends all the time who have kids at different levels, including higher education, where they're struggling with like what it's not even integrated. My kid's not learning anything. Like what are they going to do for a job in a year when they come out? And then, as we highlighted in the AI Pulse up front, we have a lot of educators in our community, a lot of educators in our audience who are trying to drive innovation and AI adoption. So I think it's interesting from all those perspectives, to look at what is Google saying and what are they talking about. And so, I think when I was going through this, I'm trying to just get a hint of where are they going to go with this? Like, where's the product going to go? How is it going to evolve? Like, my kids have Google Classroom. That's how all their assignments are done. That's how they submit everything. They use Google Docs. They use Sheets. And I was actually working with my son yesterday on Sunday with him and a friend on a pitch competition they have to do. And so we were in Google Slides, and then I was actually they'd done a survey, and they went over to exported into Sheets, and there's no Gemini in there. There's no like
Mm.
guided learning capability in the classroom feature of Google. And I was like, I wonder when that's coming, because I was actually hoping it was there, because I was going to show them how to talk to Gemini about the survey data, but I couldn't do it because it wasn't embedded. So I think it's just really interesting. And so some of the things you highlighted, Mike, but I'll just call out a couple of the things I had boldfaced as I was going through this. So they talked about AI unlocking human potential all around the world, and tying to their overall mission of making the information universally accessible and useful. AI does present urgent challenges and unknowns that society must collectively reckon with. Their goal is to help improve learning outcomes by developing AI products that are grounded in that core learning science you mentioned, and in close partnership with education community. They talked about learning being the bedrock of human potential and societal progress, equipping people with new skills, sparking curiosity, exchanging fresh ideas. They did get into like today's jobs demand not just these foundational skills, but advanced problem solving, collaboration, the ability to learn throughout life. And like that's interesting to me. It's like, well, how do we make sure they keep doing that students and even young professionals continue to have that curiosity. I was Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't want to get into like naming names here. I was having a conversation recently where someone said something about like, well, how are you doing school? And they're like, oh, I literally just use ChatGPT for every assignment.
Mm.
Like, and this is like at a high school level. Um, and so the friend was like, well, you can't do that. Like, you're not learning anything. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And it's my assumption is there's probably a lot of kids who are like that. Like, as long as they can get
Yeah.
away with it, they're just going to keep doing it. So yeah, I don't know. I thought there was just a lot of interesting perspectives. So for educators, I would definitely read this. For parents, I think it's really good to be aware of how the tech companies are thinking about this and what they find to be important and the different challenges that they're currently solving for. They did end with some interesting questions, like things that they're thinking about, how AI will change what we need to learn or even what it means to learn. How might historical forms of evaluations and assessments change due to AI? How will the nature of teaching evolve? And how can AI facilitate new types of learning previously not possible? So I liked all of those ideas. And then one related note, Mike, I was listening to Dwarkesh podcast with Andrej Karpathy recently. I don't
Yeah.
think I mentioned this on the podcast yet. I mean, Andres is always amazing to listen to, but he's working on like the future of education himself. And so there was this part that I remember, like I stopped when I was listening to it, and like rewound it and like listened to it again. And so they were talking about this assumption that like AGI does happen, that we get to the stage where the AI is at or above human level, at least average human level at basically all cognitive tasks. And so he said to Andre, he's like, well, what happens then? Like, if we get to AGI, like, do we still need school? Do we still need education? Like, what does that look like? And he said, I often say that pre AGI education is useful, post AGI education is fun. And in a similar way as people, for example, people go to the gym today, but we don't need physical strength to manipulate heavy objects because we have machines for that.
Mm.
They go to the gym. Like, why do they still go to the gym? It's because it's fun, it's healthy, and you look hot when you have a six pack. What I'm saying is it's attractive for people to do that in a certain very deep psychological evolutionary sense for humanity. And so I kind of think that education will play out in the same way. You'll go to school like you go to the gym. That's so interesting
Hmm.
because I think there's people who are just naturally curious, lifelong learners who will always seek education. They will always take courses. They will always go back to school and get another degree or just take some, interesting or watch a YouTube channel about something. Like they want to learn because it makes them feel fulfilled and good. And that's kind of what Andres is saying is like, maybe that's what education becomes is like, it's just for the people who want to keep learning. And if you want to, kind of peak as a human and let the AI do everything, like you'll probably do that. Just like you probably won't go to the gym and eat healthy and stuff like, so that, I don't know. I just thought it was like a really interesting perspective, sort of a related topic of the future of education.
Well, what's interesting is during that podcast as well, he mentioned something to the effect of, look, like the times I have learned the best have been when I've had like a direct tutor helping me work
Yeah.
through problems at the right pace for me. And they mentioned in the Google paper, they even say as part of their aspiration, ideally every student would spend ample time working in their zone of proximal development, is what
Yeah.
they call it, which is the sweet spot of just right learning challenges that lead to new skill growth. And like, no knock on the education system, but that's like not very possible today.
Correct.
So if you're thinking of it that way, you're almost like, we've been teaching with two hands behind our backs for 200 years, right? So, or longer.
Yeah.
So that's where the real excitement, I think, comes in. Can AI make possible that personalized tutoring or learning? Like, we might all be able to learn far better than we ever have.
Yeah, and I've definitely spent time with a lot of educators who see this opportunity, who know education is nowhere near reaching its potential to impact people
Yeah.
because it can't be personalized and it can't be adapted based on the way people learn. Um, that's why things like Khan Academy and Duolingo have been so popular, is it enables that kind of learning. And that's like what we're trying to do with Academy is like
Yeah.
reimagine the way to do this stuff. So yeah, it's just I mean, education touches all of us. If it's not you personally, it's your family, it's your friends, it's your coworkers, it's your employees if you're a leader. Like, and so thinking about this, how we do reskilling and upskilling in a professional environment, how we guide our kids at different levels of education, like this is just a fundamentally critical topic as we move forward. So we're gonna try to do our best to start making it just a more regular part of what we discuss.